attend today's meeting. And, Ms. Lucas, would you call roll?
Please answer here when your name is called. Representative Beryl Amade.
Here.
Leanne Broussard. Joseph Kane. Preston Castile. David Claxton. Jared Donahoe. Dr. Vicki Gentry.
Right here.
Dr. Greg Condell.
Here.
Kirby Hopkins.
Welcome.
Senator Katrina Jackson. Marion Johnson. Denise Karamalis. Jimmy Long Jr. Dr. Bill Luster.
Here.
Tana Luther.
Here.
Meredith McGovern.
Present.
Senator Beth Mizell. Representative Charles Owen. Regina Pierce.
Here.
Dr. Carl Stevens.
Here.
Dr. Larry Tremblay.
Here.
Debbie Troxclair. Dr. Art Williams.
Here.
Madam Chair, I would also like to recognize guests in the room, Dr. Steve Horton, Dr. Bill Ebar, Mr. Ken Sills, Dr. Jason Anderson, Ms. Angela Kubion, Ms. Christy Price, Ms. Emily Shoemate, Ms. Rose Lutsky, Ms. Randy Washington, Ms. Michelle Robinson, Ms. Kara Stanfield, Ms. Miranda Chapman, Ms. Corey Poole. Madam Chair, you have a quorum, you may proceed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, we do have 2 new board members, but they could not attend today, so we'll wait and formally introduce them at the next meeting. Agenda item number 2 is the nomination and selection of the chair. We need a motion from the table. We'd like to nominate someone for chair of the board of the Louisiana School.
I'd like to nominate Vicki Gentry. I move that.
Second.
Second, thank you. We have all in favor of the nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any oppositions? If so, you can be the chair.
Congratulations.
Agenda item number 3 is the nomination and election of the vice chair. Is there a motion from the
I
table?
nominate Dr. Greg Condell.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second? Ms. Lucas? Larry Tremblay? All in favor? Greg Condell, vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? And moved as approved. Congratulations. But you just couldn't. Agenda item number 4 is your approval of the members for the executive committee. And this is according to our bylaws. That's in your handbook as well. The purpose of the executive member is to take action in emergency situations. And those actions will be formally approved by the board at the next board meeting. So the individuals that I've contacted to serve include Regina Pierce. Regina, would you raise your hand? And Dr. Bill Luster. And Jared Donahoe, who's not with us today. He's been on the board for several years. And then the vice chair, Greg Condell, myself, and then a non-voting member would be Dr. Horton. So again, hopefully those.
This is only to operate the school in the event of something happening between quarterly meetings. It allows the board to act and then ratify at a regular meeting, but it does give the authority of that executive committee to act on behalf of the board.
So move.
Dr. Tremblay, motion, second.
Second.
Regina Pierce, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you for your service. I did contact everyone in advance and they agreed to serve. Okay, agenda item, number 7 is the introduction of new staff members. I believe, Rose, there, thank you.
Madam Chair, have you missed agenda item 5 to approve the minutes?
I did not. I did not do that. Thank you. Thank you for your
It
attention
must
to
be an
me.
Outlook thing and it just jumped off the page.
And I didn't do 6 either, did I? Okay, let me regress. So item number 6 is approval of March 16th minutes. You did have an opportunity to read those in advance of the meeting today. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, if not, they stand approved as prepared. Agenda item.
There needs to be a motion and a second.
Oh, there must
vote.
be?
I move,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
move approval.
Moved, Dr. Williams,
Second.
second, Ms. McGovern, all in favor of, aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for helping me with that. Okay, agenda item 6, call for public comment, and there were no requests for public comment. So we can move on to number 7. Now it's your turn.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Student Support Services is excited to welcome 2 new staff members to LSMSA. Please join me in welcoming Administrative Coordinator and Lead 2025 Test Coordinator, Ms. Miranda Chapman. Ms. Miranda was born and raised in Clarence and has a degree in mathematics from Xavier University of Louisiana. Miranda provides administrative support to 3 departments: Student Support Services, Student Advocacy, and Conduct and Residential Life. During her interview, y'all, she came prepared and she said with conviction that she was here to help and save us and rescue us, and that's exactly what she has done. She has honored her word. Her love of learning, her love of people, and trying new things have made a difference in our office. We're so glad to have her. Thank you for choosing us, Miranda. Thank you. All right, next, please join me in welcoming our Coordinator of Student Academic Support, Ms. Kara Stanfield. Kara was born and raised in Natchitoches. Her career in education as a high-set instructor for Louisiana. She started her career in education as a high-set instructor for the Louisiana Department of Corrections. Soon after, she started working at Ashland University as a site director for the Natchitoches Parish and Claiborne Parish Detention Centers. She has a Master's of Adult Education at Ashland University, and as a site director, Kara learned she loves working closely with students in a diverse environment and enjoys strategizing with others about student success. So Kara has been here for 13 days, y'all. And she is so excited to be here and thrilled to work with our students, and we're excited to see what she does this fall. Thank you for welcoming me today. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 8 is approval of credentials of new faculty. Thank you, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come to you for your approval of our new faculty member who's replacing Dr. Al Benner, Mr. Michael Young. He'll be our new instrumentalist, theorist, and composition. As you see, I mean, his credentials stand for themselves. He has a bachelor's of music performance from Northwestern University, and he also has a master's of music from the distinguished University of Cincinnati, CCM. So I just come for your approval of his credentials. Thank you.
Okay. We need a motion for approval of the new faculty.
I so move.
Dr. Stevens, and second. Dr. Tremblay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposition to that?
May I ask a question?
You certainly can.
Who's gonna chair that department?
Crystal Lewis.
She's gonna chair.
Okay, agenda item 9 is call for an executive session to discuss the annual evaluation of the executive director. I need a motion for approval to go into executive session.
So,
Um,
Everyone for- There's,
And we need
there's
a-
some verbiage that has to be stated, so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the Board of Directors of the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts move into executive session pursuant to revised statute 4217 to discuss the findings of the special committee of the board charged with reviewing the annual evaluation of the executive director.
Thank you. So prepared. Well, we need a roll call vote for this, so Ms. Lewis will do that.
Yes, ma'am. Please enter your indication of yes or no to enter into executive session. Representative Earl Amade,
Yes.
Dr. Vicky Gentry,
Yes.
Dr. Greg Hondo,
Yes.
Mr. Kirby Hopkins,
Yes.
Dr. Bill Luster,
Yes.
Ms. Tana Luther,
Yes.
Ms. Meredith McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Regina Pierce,
Yes.
Dr. Kyle Stevens,
Yes.
Dr. Larry Tremblay,
Yes.
Dr. Art Williams.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have required 2/3 vote to enter into executive session. I'd ask that Attorney Tim Stills please remain in the room.
And Dr. Anderson. I'd like for
Dr.
him to
Anderson,
remain.
please remain in the room. Would everyone else please turn off recording devices?
Regular, session of the board.
I make a motion to accept the committee's satisfactory evaluation of
You
Dr.
gotta move to go back into, you did, never mind. I'm just making sure we be special to Robert, in rules of order, okay.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Hondo and a second by Dr. Williams, to accept the committee's satisfactory evaluation rating of Dr. Horton. I already said that.
Is that
The
required?
motion passed unanimously. I don't know. Is that it? Do we need
It was
another?
moved by Dr. Hondo, passed by Dr. Williams. Both was second, it was passed
So
unanimously.
now we need a vote.
Now
All in favor?
Okay, all in favor of the recommendation as provided?
Aye.
Are there any objections to that? Okay, thank you for your participation. Okay. Now we're ready to move on.
Agenda item 10 should be next on your list.
Okay, item number 10 is the ratification of the foundation's faculty staff reimbursement. And that would be board.
Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to review or in your binder, agenda item 10, exhibit 1. You'll see since March, 4 faculty staff members received reimbursement from the foundation. They're noted, Bridget Bechtel, Bill Ebar, Emily Shoemake, Heather Tishner, and the amounts and the reasons, and I ask the board to ratify these reimbursements per board policy.
Seconded.
Have a motion
Motion is second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? Okay, item number 11. We have some amendments to the student handbook. I believe Angela Vespuvion is going to address that.
Let's do it this way. If you've got questions, whichever director is responsible for that particular area will be happy to field those questions.
Flip to the page behind agenda item exhibit 1, you'll see a summary of the changes on those 2 pages. That'll give you some direction, if you have questions.
Give you a moment.
And all of these have been reviewed by Mr. Sills and counsel for legality and appropriateness.
Number 34, what's the current rules on signing up for going off campus?
The current rules for signing out to go off campus?
Right, to what level can they go across the street for pizza, what level can they go downtown or to Walmart?
But as far as privilege
Yeah.
levels. They don't necessarily have to be at a specific level to go to like, to sign off, to just belong to like, Chick-fil-A or anything like that. But it's more so, the privilege levels affect them being able to drive, like to drive and go to like Walmart and those places. And that happens at 3 as well.
33 also allows the NSU campus to be traveled with one companion rather than otherwise.
And I don't know this,
And then students being able to go to City Park, and that's down on the corner of Second and Amulette, but they're only allowed to go to the corner of Fourth and Amulette. They can't go beyond that fenced area, so it's just the park that's well lit, and it's a walking park with a playground. Well, we're adding that as an approved location for them to access with the proper sign approval.
and for them to travel on campus, they must, if it's after sundown, they must have 3 companions.
Okay, 1 companion if it's in town, and 3 companions if it's out of town.
No,
No.
that is
Has to go.
after sundown.
And it's, if you're going further than University Parkway after
Yeah.
sundown, they can go, prior to sundown, they can go to the businesses on University Parkway by themselves. After sundown, they have to have 1 companion. And then prior to sundown, they have to go have one companion to go further than University Parkway. Afterwards, they have to have 3.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the companion part works.
Okay. Ms. Almadine?
Just wanted to mention, on point number 11, dress code and dress and grooming. I reviewed those and I wanted to say thank you to whoever drafted that. I know it may seem, difficult to have to go to that level of detail, but I appreciate it, I think it's important. Item number 13 says guest, wait. No, oh, yes, expands the minimum notice required for overnight guests in the LLC. I guess I had overlooked that before. Tell me, what are the rules for overnight guests? Who can be an overnight guest?
So they can have, well, as far as who can be an overnight guest, they can have a sibling come and be an overnight guest, they can have a friend from back home be an overnight guest as well. But we don't allow parents and, like, if they have a significant other, that's significant other of the opposite sex, they must find someone on another tower to be an overnight, that another student must host them in the dorms.
There's an approval policy, process by which we allow an overnight guest to stay in the residence hall.
And so if they want an overnight guest, they'll complete a form that they can get off the, resources page, or they can ask, request from the SLA on me. And then their SLA will sign off on it, will go to Mr. Dean, and then it will come to me. And then we'll notify the parents and verify that they were okay with it, that they're approved, and then the student can come. But we changed it from the 24, well, they wanted it to be 24 hours, but that wasn't really enough time to, like, make all the contacts and verify.
Okay, thank you. It's just something I guess I never noticed before. It was new to me. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, yes, Dr. Tremblay?
I'm just trying to understand, going back to that 34. So we saying before this is amended, that a student can't be on, I'm not trying to say that NSU.
It was a gray area. If I can jump in, I think what happened, is when our residence halls were further across campus,
Right.
we would talk about campus broadly. And I think that as we moved over to the LLC and now our campus is sort of one piece, we haven't done a good job of changing the language just to clarify our campus versus the NSU campus. And so there was a question with the situation earlier this year where some students were over, on the field, the President's Field type area in that area of campus. And there was question about whether they did or did not need a companion, because if it's the LSMSA campus, they don't have to have a companion if we just say campus. But on the NSU campus, our expectation has been that they have at least one companion. And so we're just trying to clarify, when you get out of our LSMSA bubble, which includes the library and our buildings that are right here, if you go further, you have to have one companion. And it's just trying to tighten that up from when our campus was bigger than it is now because we were spread out.
Okay, and one other question I want to have your attention. Going back to the guest idea, prohibit students who withdraw for disciplinary reasons. That sounds like a very voluntary thing. In other words, what if they're kicked out for disciplinary reasons?
Well, normally what happens is we require them to withdraw instead of expulsion or anything like that. The panel, the disciplinary panel will require that they withdraw. So if they are required to withdraw for disciplinary issues, then that is when the stipulation would come into place.
I guess I'm just pointing out the language, who withdraw for this. It sounds like a student made a choice to withdraw versus.
In truth, they do, because if they don't withdraw, then we move towards expulsion. So they choose to withdraw to avoid us expelling.
Think of it as asking for their resignation.
Yes.
Yeah.
They resign rather than being
Yeah,
fired.
we gave you two choices, you walk away voluntarily, or we kick you out.
Pretty much.
Thank you.
Dr. Ella actually implemented that language very early on to avoid the stigma of expulsion on the transcript as a courtesy to the family and to the students. I think it worked well.
I can't even remember in my 8 years that we've had anybody that went through to expulsion, that it always worked out where they voluntarily withdrew so that the transcript didn't have that term, so you're correct, and it does eliminate a forever issue that they may regret very quickly later. That's great, that's where it came from.
Okay, moving along, we need a motion for agenda item number 12, which is the approval of the non-discrimination I'm sorry, I was on the wrong line. Approval of number 11. So proposed amendments to the student handbook. I'm sorry, thank you.
Second.
In a second, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And now we can go to 12. Approval of the non-discrimination policy. And that would be Ms. Price
Yeah,
and Mr. Seals. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, I'll have you do questions on it. On the non-discrimination policy.
Why don't you explain where the purpose?
This is part of the Department of Education and federal requirements that we changed the wording on the non-discrimination policy. And just kind of clarify what the discrimination is. I don't have honestly don't have a copy of the old policy in front of me to see exactly what it says. If y'all have any questions on it, Mr. Seals, do you have anything you want to add?
It was reviewed by one of the partners in the firm, Wayne Stewart, and he approved it.
It's
It's highlighted.
agenda item 12, exhibit 1. It says at the top, non-discrimination policy. It's past the student handbook changes.
Your first page has like a grid at
There
the
you go.
bottom,
Yeah,
four
it's got
boxes.
a statement as employee, student, contact. Okay. Any other comments about this? Okay, so we need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Kirby,
Second.
and second, Dr. Stevens, all in favor? Any opposition to that? Whew, okay, take a deep breath. Number 12 is approval of the Title IX policies. This is agenda item number 13. Exhibit number 1, give you a second to locate that. And again, Mr. Sills and Ms. Price are here.
As I understand it, through the efforts of the staff, the school has an arrangement with a national firm that is very active in the area of assisting colleges and universities and schools on the Title IX. The issue this year, it had been indicated really for a couple of years that the present Washington administration was going to amend the 2020 Title IX regulations. And so that is the policy that this board has operated on, that was approved a couple of years ago and has been in practice. This new document that's presented to you is a result of a couple months ago, the administration did issue the 2024 amendments to Title IX. And they put an effective date of August 1, 2024. Well, that doesn't allow a whole lot of time to do that. So, the staff worked with the national company and then worked with Dr. Wayne Stewart from our firm, from one of the partners. And they went through and made whatever adjustments and all to have present what is before you. In my quick reading on this, understand part of Title IX originally was about sex, about participation in sports. If there were not enough women's teams in this, there were not enough whatever, or why was the women's basketball team just working in some little bitty gym or whatever. Well, those are the discriminations based upon sex that remained the law, and this version clearly incorporates those kinds of complaints if they still exist or come about, and has the procedures that would be followed. Many years later, then one of the federal government then decided to define sexual harassment, sexual acts as also coming under Title IX. So that's why we're in this area today. And you all probably are aware, there are, I think the last count, there are like over 24 lawsuits that have been filed in various federal district courts in the United States. That for various things, people are objecting to the new Title IX regs from the federal government that are supposed to be effective for August 1. So far, no judge has issued a stay order to say, wait, hold, this does not go into effect August 1. Well, that leaves us here in the universities and the schools and parish school boards in a dilemma, and understand the official position of the state of Louisiana through our Attorney General, Liz, and our governor. They have joined with other attorney generals and have filed a lawsuit which is pending in Monroe, Louisiana, in the federal district court. no action yet. So that's where we're at. And understand what, a lot of the objection comes from, I guess, cultural differences, and the problems there. This version that's before you is really pretty vanilla. We're not trying to take sides one way or the other. And, as a result, my recommendation, after get the input of what is changed or what the procedures are and all, would be to approve this with the caveat that unless, if it will be effective, unless there is some court order that would be applicable to the state of Louisiana that would suspend the implementation. And that would mean that if the Title IX information or complaints, et cetera, would continue to be handled under the 2020 regulations. And interesting enough, even if August 1 does become an effective date, any acts prior to August 1 still will be handled under the 2020 version. And just I guess the big bone of contention that comes about, and I call him Dr. Wayne Stewart, because he has his law degree and he has his doctorate in psychology. So, and he's been working with this staff here, and I'll be sending him to some of your board meetings coming down the road here, so you all become familiar with him too. Rather than, we were defining sex discrimination is discrimination or denial of a Louisiana school math science or benefit to a person on the basis of their sex, including sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy, or related conditions. I think that makes common sense and is not stepping into any cultural war about any. So, ladies, I'll let you all explain how you all came to all this.
I have a question. On number 2, when it says removes requirement for a signed formal complaint, a verbal report is enough to begin an investigation. To me, that's scary. As an educator, a teacher, I mean, for someone to just say you did something, and then what does an investigation involve? Who's gonna do that? How much paperwork is that? I mean, I'm just saying, from my perspective, why would they remove a signed formal complaint? I mean, just a verbal is enough? That's scary.
Well, what happens is that the complaint has to come to the Title IX coordinator. At that point in time, the Title IX coordinator will look at it and see if it meets the requirements to be a formal Title IX complaint. From there, it gets moved through the investigation and decision-making process. One good thing about the new regs is it did reduce the time. The timeline previously would take anywhere between 60 to 90 days. So one complaint would drag out over the course of a semester. With the new regulations, it has now reduced that timeline down to like 15 to 20 days. But it is scary that, you know, somebody can just say, hey, such and such did this, and we immediately have to go in to Title IX mode.
Because you're talking about people's careers and their reputations here, based on someone that may be upset about something that, say, Dr. Anderson did. That concerns me.
Real quick, on number 2, the investigation was in the 2020 edition, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the report would be to the same person, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. And one thing that the new policy does include now that was not included in the 2020 regs is now employees are actually should be using the Title IX process too, so if there's an employee or employee type situation that comes up, they would actually file a complaint as well with the Title IX coordinator.
Have any rules been changed to avoid, like a one-on-one conversation with a student? I mean, what I'm saying, where when you meet personally with a student, shouldn't you have another person with you?
You can, but you also have to remember that everything in the Title IX world has to be as confidential as possible.
I think
So-
she's talking about when just an employee's meeting
Oh,
with
when
a
an
student.
employee-
That's what I'm
No, our
talking
rules
about.
aren't changing there, and I understand what you're saying, that this scares you. The removal of the signed, written complaint form really is intended to simplify the process. We're not taking things less seriously because we don't have a signed form from a parent. So in the 2020 regs, it was very red tape, very bureaucratic, and so there's a form that has to be filled out, and in a K-12 setting, the parent has to sign that form too, requesting that we investigate this claim that their student has made. This allows us to not have to wait on a parent to email us back and say, yes, I want you to investigate. We can call that parent on the phone, which we must do for anyone under the age of 18.
Right.
Call that parent on the phone, say, your child has claimed that this incident has taken place. Would you like for us to investigate? And if they say yes, we can move forward on that. We're going to continue to document everything in writing because that's best practice. But we don't have to have a physical signature from a parent saying, I want you to launch the formal investigative process.
Thank you.
And one thing, one of the new regs is trying to prevent or remove is a barrier to reporting, and so this is one of the ways that they see it just kind of opens up for students to feel more comfortable reporting rather than having the formal written complaint.
I just, if I could comment, I completely, agree emotionally with Ms. Pierce. If you ask any faculty member on campus what's their number one fear, it's gonna be, God forbid, an active shooter. If you ask them their number two fear, it is, God forbid, a Title IX accusation that could, as you said, ruin careers that are not easy to come by. That said, I think the usefulness of this is, we have got 14-year-old kids in that dorm, and anything we can do to jump into the process of protecting them as soon as possible is, I think the motivation behind this.
And this process, because it treats the complainants and the respondents equitably, it protects that faculty member to the same extent that it protects.
That was my biggest
The
concern.
student who's making the
Fact,
complaint.
they need
Yes.
protected.
And the 2020 regs did not do that.
Okay,
The
thank you.
2020 regs basically automatically assumed the respondent was guilty.
One thing I will add, that TICSA is the name of the organization, the Association of Title IX Administrators. It's a national organization. It's not, majority of your districts that are members of it, but it provides support in the administration of Title IX policies and guidelines. It is not a know-all, wear-all. It's primarily it's a group that advocates for schools, with schools, in the establishing of Title IX policies, the implementation of Title IX policies. But if you read through this proposal, 95% of it is the process. That it spells out very carefully what happens at what point. And when the first Title IX policies came out, when I was still at Northwestern back in the late 2010, 2012, it was very general. Lots of people got involved. Confidentiality wasn't maintained. This eliminates all of that and has the Title IX policies have become very, I would say very specific and not very yielding. Everything has a guideline, a timeline, impact, it's everything comes down the pipe. So it leaves very little for loopholing. But this does not, TICSA is not ready, and most schools are not ready to get into specific definitions until it comes to a point where there's legal action to make that decision. So that's why if you look at, someone had mentioned Mr. Sills had mentioned definition 28 on page 4, that's why it remains very generic as to, in terms of sex discrimination, it's very specific or general, let me reverse it, general to pretty much the general terms and conditions that have always been in play. If to that point it comes along where it goes beyond that by legislative order or state order, the school will have to move forward. It's just that leaving the school exposed in terms of the administration and the faculty and staff is something that makes our faculty and staff very uneasy, particularly since we are a residential school 24/7 and we have very young kids. I don't want a child to misuse the Title IX policy, like Ms. Pierce said, to ruin someone's life, and that you see horror stories on the web about that. But you look carefully and you read through this, it doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room that there's gonna be a process that's gonna protect both parties. And I go back to, if something changes before August 1 through a court order or whatever, the school goes back to 2020. But we bring the kids back the second week of August. If August 1 comes and we have nothing in place, we're sitting on our hands. And that, for our faculty and staff and administration, that is uneasy legally as it would be to have something at least in play that has a process that we can amend with an order from the courts. So that's why you have the option of taking no action, you have the option of tabling this action. You could amend the policy as is with no comments, or you could accept the policy or adopt the policy that, if there was any provision of change that would delay or stop in any way, that would allow this board to make that decision, and the school would go back to the 2020 regulations.
Of those, the last one would be the most beneficial to protect the school.
D.
To approve with the caveat, correct?
Yes.
And that's what,
And there would
The
be,
universities are facing the same problem, except you have far more oversight from the feds. And you